NAMIC Atlanta, welcome to what should be another great coffee talk. We pride ourselves in bringing you leaders who help us expand our thoughts, add to our vision, as well as really ground us in what it takes to be a leader at a high level. And today will be no different. Today we have the honor and privilege, of having Mark Greatrex with us, who's the president of Cox Communications, Cox being the third largest cable operator in the country, as well as also getting into mobile. So Mark, how's it going today?
Very well, thank you, Charles. It's great to be with you.
Great to be with you as well, sir. Listen, let's jump in. As I looked back over your journey, from the time when you were an entrepreneur with I think it was Eagles Farms. I may be getting the name wrong.
Eagle Family Foods, yeah, a
Eagles
leveraged
Family
buyout,
Food,
yep.
right? You're part owner there, and then you made your way over to AOL, which half my audience may not even know what AOL is. To Coca-Cola and then to Cox. You always sat at a seat of I'm gonna say power and influence that you used to help bring visibility as well as stability and ultimately have those companies grow, right? But I want to take you back in time for a second, where when you were that teenager, and I don't know, what were you like? Were you that I know everything, or a person who was the smartest one in the room, or were you a jock who was the captain of the team? What type of, how did you start to get into the mold of the person that you are today?
Well, I think the most important thing to share is that I'm actually an identical twin.
Oh,
so
wow.
there are two of us running around this world.
Am I talking to the right one today?
Sorry?
Am I talking to the right one today?
Yeah, yes. This is the Mark Greatrex here in the US. You could be talking to Grant Greatrex from Madrid, Spain. But growing up as an identical twin, there was a goodly amount of healthy competition, both in the sports arena, on the athletics track or the rugby field, but also, from an academic point of view. And I would say, I was chairman of our high school students union. So, I got elected. So I think fairly early on, I felt more comfortable in leadership roles. But at the end of the day, I followed my passions and my interests through my career, and I've really, progressed in a jungle gym type of career, starting with Unilever in consumer products, working internationally there, coming up through brand management, managing a P&L, as you mentioned, then moving and being an entrepreneur, being a part owner of Eagle Family Foods, which was a leverage buyout. Fantastic experience, really molded me. Free cash flow for me now is something that's very visceral and tangible, not just something on financial spreadsheets. And then moving into America Online, what I realized is, there was something to this website thing and this digital thing. So I jumped in with both feet and just learned an amazing amount, along with some of the early pioneers in the internet service provider business. And then moved to Coca-Cola, where I was able to see a lot of the world, a lot of different business models, managing the still beverages category for Coca-Cola. And along the way, having moved to Atlanta, I heard about this amazing company called Cox Communications and Cox Enterprises that's family owned. And people who knew me very well and knew my values just said, Mark, you'd be just such a great fit over there. And I think you'd really enjoy it. You'd be really fulfilled and very successful. And 11 years later, I feel the same way. I mean, Cox Communications and overall, we got a big portfolio here at Cox. Just a wonderful place to work. Great family leadership. We're on our fourth generation of family leadership with Alex Taylor, who's just a superb boss and leader. He's our CEO and chairman. And, it's right up my alley in terms of my values of valuing others, supporting others. I'm an energy amplifier, Charles. You know me pretty well. So I just love inspiring and energizing people. And I get to do that with 18,000 fantastic colleagues now.
Yeah, anybody who's been around you long enough will feel that infectious energy that you have. So I'm totally there with you. And the funny thing is, as you say, early on, even if you didn't know it, Your comrades knew it. They said, no, you're going to be the chairman. Why?
Well,
Because they saw
that's
that leadership in you already, right? So
right.
let me ask you this, right? When we look at because I've only seen you in very senior roles, but let's go into that middle leader role where middle leader could be anywhere from senior director, senior director into that VP role, right?
Yes.
What's the value add that do you look at them and say, because I speak to a lot of individuals, and sometimes I get to a subset that they've made it, in their brains, and they're like, I don't have to do anymore. I'm making enough cash flow. I'm good. And then you have others who are still energetic and want to get it. What would be your advice to that group, right? That says, you still may need to go out there and network, if not for yourself, for the business. You got to look at either being mentored and having mentees. Why? Because you're doing certain things, and I'll let you elaborate on it. And then also on that sponsorship side, right? Because
Hmm.
growing at a certain point stops if you don't have enough people in the room who are advocating for you.
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
what, what
So I would say I'm a great believer in the growth mindset. Always be learning, always be thinking about your own development, and that of others, because you learn so much from mentoring and sponsoring others. So, and I think it's tremendously important to have a lateral view of the business. I think um, purposeful networking is a superpower, and it can ignite your career. It can build your business brain, your business brand as a leader. So my view would be always be networking. I network a lot. I stay connected with a pretty vast network now, and I love to meet new people who are doing different things than I can do, and who are at the top of their game, who I can learn from, get some fresh perspective on subjects that are important, because you don't want to just a network all over the place without a purpose and a mission. But when you do a network with a purpose, that leads to, I think, really value-added conversations and two-way dialogue. So that's the first thing. Secondly, in terms of mentorship, uh, it can be multiple ways. I actually here at Cox Communications have had reverse mentors. So I worked with one of our director level executives in Arizona who works in the area of government affairs and regulatory affairs. I just learned so much about sort of the state regulation and the activities of that team. And I had a reverse mentor in the gaming world as well, a young lady here at Cox who's a, a very good competitive player. So I think it can go always. And at Cox, we have a very well structured and planful broad scale mentoring program. And we are continue to expand that because we see the benefits. And in our experience, that very lively, purposeful mentoring sometimes leads to sponsorship. And sponsorship is so powerful to have someone advocating for you when you're not in the room, advocating for you during the regular talent planning process. And a big lesson learned is if you're aiming to move up the organization or be given fresh and new and challenging missions, it's important that you have multiple advocates.
yeah.
Because if you only have one or two around a table of 8 decision makers, that's not quite enough. You need that, like the majority of people say, wow, that Charles is fantastic. Yes, all in. And so I do think moving to that sponsorship level is super important. We've actually started to move out Cox Communications on a program called SOAR, which is about being very planful about sponsorship, trying to find those pairings and couplings where senior executives, SVPs, and EVPs can find people that they feel very confident and have conviction in sponsoring. And I would say it's for senior leaders, it's important to be very vigilant during meetings to take stock of who impresses you time and time again. And I've turned into a sponsor for some of our diverse leaders who I've known them maybe 8, 10 years. Every interaction is amazing. And I've been able to sponsor them literally moving them from being directors up to now VPs and officers. So anyway, as you can see, I have a lot of enthusiasm for it because I do. I just think it's such a powerful way to bring great quality leaders who are also diverse up through the organization. And many of us as companies, it's not for lack of diversity in our pipeline. It's for the consistent challenge and opportunity for us to move really great leaders up into the senior most ranks.
I would argue that if we played that segment to leaders across a lot of spaces, and also to individual contributors and managers or management that's early in their careers, that would help, de-risk the great resignation and all of these different migrations, because I've been on my soapbox about that for a long time. And I don't think you've been in any of the rooms where I've said, leaders, you have to look at the people who are in these rooms and listen to these rock stars and then tag them. Some of them don't have the voice to go to you, but you can easily go to them and say, great meeting. And that will make their week.
Yeah, Charles, that's the way it happens. Absolutely. And the one other piece of career counsel I would give people who are at the director, senior director, VP level is always be thinking about being 2 levels up in the organization. Think about the leaders at that level in your own organization, and how do they make decisions? What are the factors that they're using? How broad is their view? And get into that mindset. Start making your own decisions and showing up in meetings with a less parochial point of view, a balcony point of view. And what happens through very naturally is that people start to say that when that next promotion comes around, like, darn, Charles is already showing up as a vice president. He's got that 360 lateral view. He's knowledgeable about other parts of the organization. He puts his company hat on, not his functional team hat. And that for me actually has been just a key to success since someone gave me that advice when I was 26 years old. I guess I was a brand manager at the time, and I got that advice from someone who was 3 levels up at the time. But it works like a charm.
It is stuck with you.
Yeah, it does.
X years later.
Absolutely.
Let me pivot us for a second, right? So we are arguably in, if not one of the most established countries in the world, where you would imagine that we have internet everywhere, right? I remember, I'm old enough to remember when people actually walked around and tried to sell encyclopedias to individuals, and now we have Wikipedia, which has the entire volume of every encyclopedia right there to touch, right? And so when I start thinking about the initiatives that I know you're a part of with the Affordable Connectivity Program initiatives, you had the opportunity to go to the White House, talk to administration, but unpeel that for a little, for us a little.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Cox Communications. I mean, we're right at the heart of the internet, and we have a massive role to play in terms of really fast, reliable, and accessible connectivity, internet connectivity. And for over 20 years now, we've been working to bridge the digital divide. And we've had programs in place like Connect to Compete that provides very low cost subsidized internet service for eligible families with school children. And we have continued to grow the scale and reach of that program and aim over time to strengthen it, actually, to help the families and particularly the parents as well with digital skills. Working with partners like PCs for People to give them access to very low cost, quality refurbished hardware. So really understanding the barriers to being connected all the time for all the activities we need, and knocking those barriers down. And most recently, we've worked with the Biden administration on the Affordable Connectivity Program, and we've actually expanded the eligibility of a $30 a month subsidy. So there are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of families within our footprint of who could access a new $30 internet tier, and then get subsidized from the government and basically have internet connectivity for free. So we're working both with increasing accessibility, so extending our network to the unserved and the underserved, particularly in rural areas, but there are also sort of internet deserts in urban areas as well. So we're mindful of that. So broadening accessibility to super fast internet. We want people on a minimum of 100 meg, and with our cable broadband network, we can offer basically gig speeds everywhere that we build. So we want very high speed, high reliability, but then there's the affordability piece, which we've already put a lot of our own money in with Connect to Compete, but now we're partnering with the government on ACP. And I think we are seeing both the government seeing and private enterprise are seeing more opportunity for public-private partnerships. And you'll see that, Charles, as the broadband infrastructure money begins to flow. It's starting to flow right now, and the most recent legislation has more than $40 billion available for us as a nation to build out a great quality broadband network to the unserved and underserved. So we're all about it, and it's just an amazing place to be as an internet service provider, to have a fantastic business that is very healthy, to be able to continue to make investments in the broadband network. One of the things that governments sometimes don't recognize is it's one thing to build a broadband network, but you gotta maintain it, and then you gotta upgrade it like every couple of years, because data usage is growing at over 40% a year. So there's just a huge amount of investment that we do and other cable companies do to keep our networks up to snuff, and keeping pace with data usage, and then adding on all the speed. So it's a tough thing to do, but we do it pretty well, and we're looking forward to bringing our broadband to even more families.
Question for you, and you just made me think through this for a second. When you start talking about the data rates increasing, and you start talking about connectivity, just a quick view. Not when I go to metaverse and blockchain, not from the cryptocurrency standpoint, really just from a technology standpoint and the rate of adoption. Does that affect your business, or do you see it affecting your business longer term?
Absolutely. We do a lot of thinking and peering into the future around Web 3.0. So what is that? It's more immersive virtual experiences. So it's the AR, the VR. You think about rock stars these days having concerts that are in the Fortnite platform that literally have millions of audience members coming along to enjoy. I mean, and then you think about VR and AR as applied to training, education, work skills, a hybrid environment. So that's one piece of Web 3.0. A second is our physical environments are becoming more connected, more digitized, and smarter. So you think about smart homes, smart communities, smart cities. It's very real. I mean, you may have heard of the digital twins, which is the physical world has a digital twin in the virtual digital world. So that requires a massive amounts of bandwidth. And then today in North America, there are about 2.5 billion smart connected devices. By the end of the decade, there'll be 6 billion. So, and they're becoming more autonomous. They need to make real-time decisions. So we see just an exponential growth in the need for speed, for bandwidth, and low latency, because you don't want your smart car and your autonomous car to have to send, if it's about to crash, sending its data all the way across the country and back for that signal. You need local computing and low latency computing. So yes, net, the metaverse is one aspect of Web 3.0, and it's going to have a dramatic impact on demand for our internet services and also for our capabilities.
Yeah. And so when I tie that back into that
Mhm.
affordable connectivity, if
Yeah,
they're not in, then they're not in,
right.
right? That's a crazy thought
Yes.
process, because then you're saying a subset of our country is not gaining, and then you're going to have individuals within that subset who could be absolutely brilliant if they had access to these tools.
Well, I'll give you an example. Last night, myself and a number of our team from Cox were at the Boys and Girls Club event down at the Georgia Aquarium for the Southeast, and we were heralding the Youth of the Year for the Southeast region. And you just get the sense of this incredible potential of all these young people, these teenagers that are up on stage, and that they need access to the internet. They need the very latest digital tools to fulfill their full potential. And fortunately, we have a great partnership with Boys and Girls Club. We have about 120 like innovation digital labs where we bring the internet and we bring 3D printers and we bring the world of VR, AR into the Boys and Girls Clubs. And it is, to your point, just so critically important for the development of our youth.
You know, I had the privilege and the honor to not just meet, but to also interview Dr. Opal Lee earlier this week, as we start to move into Juneteenth, and listen to the incredible journey that she's still on, and the genesis of it, from her house being burnt down, and I think it was like 1939 on June 19th. But, it's a lot of things that she was unpacking that I mean, I'll be honest, it was emotional for me, because I was like, wait, I get to speak to a lot. I mean, I'm speaking to you, a lot of interesting individuals. She's up there because of all of what she helped bring a bill into Congress and become, a federal holiday, right? And so as I think back on that, how do you reflect on Juneteenth, and how is Cox looking at Juneteenth today, and I guess moving forward?
Well, I think from my point of view, Juneteenth is uh, a really important reminder of how hard uh, Black African Americans have had to fight for their liberty, their freedom, and for equal opportunity. And it is a reminder that back in that day during emancipation, that there was a whole group who were left behind for 2 years. And so for me, Juneteenth is an object reminder that our work is never done in terms of driving towards equal opportunity for all, and that we always have to be vigilant for those left behind and those who we may not see, or they need voices. So I think, and I'll just relate that back to my upbringing in England. In my experience, back in the 60s, England was quite the caste system. It's very
Mm.
hierarchical. Where you went to school, how you spoke, what your mum and dad did, that all sort of predetermined what people's expectations were for you, what you could or couldn't do. I mean, it's really, and I just railed against that system because, I wanted liberty and freedom and opportunity to be who I wanted to be. It's one of the reasons I moved to the States. I have some empathy, and I can relate. And, for me, it's part of my DNA to fight with a lion's heart for people who don't have the same opportunities as others. And we here at Cox Communications, we work consistently towards that end. I have the privilege of co-chairing our national Diversity and Inclusion Council, which is just, you know it well, which is just such a powerful body of passionate people, ensuring that we are all brought along and that no one's left behind. So that for me is the meaning of Juneteenth. It's sort of emblematic of a fight that goes on.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you for the insight into your background on that. You also have an economics degree, if I remember
I do,
correctly,
yes.
and so I couldn't leave without asking you a question on economics. And I mean, we just had a 75 basis point hike, and if you start looking at the impacts of where we are, I'm not even going to throw out, not the political side of it, but war, COVID, just the world economy as it stands right now, people talking about recession, and with these interest rates, being hiked, it's to ensure that demand is brought down a little, but that's going to have a downstream effect because now housing is going to be affected. The rates in which we pay back loans are going to be affected, and all these sort of transpire to your customers as well as your employees. And so, any reassuring words or any thoughts on that for the employees or your customer base, or just
Well,
what you think in general?
yeah, a couple from an economist point of view, this is a very intensive lesson in the laws of supply and demand. And we have a number of factors that are limiting supply that are, structural and also acute that need to be resolved to open up supply. And then I think through over the last couple of years, a fair amount of stimulus to help with the demand side, and those aren't in sync, and it's led to heightened inflation for a lot longer than any of us would want. And what I observe for our customer base is that the average family is their household budget is so pressured in terms of the cost of shelter, the cost of fuel, the cost of utilities, the cost of putting food on the table. I think so. There's the big lessons in macroeconomics that we're seeing play out not only here in the US, but across so many markets. I mean, you see inflation across the board. If you watch Bloomberg TV, it's 8 to 10% pretty much everywhere, if not higher. And then the microeconomics of people's household budgets that are being pressured. And what we see is a rejiggering of the priority of where people spend their money and have to prioritize and trade off. And I do think we still have a lot of uncertainty ahead of us, and it is weighing understandably on consumer sentiment. And because consumer spending is the lion's share of our GDP growth, if the consumer catches a cold, it's bad news for the economy.
Yeah, everybody.
It's uncertain times ahead, and I think every single business leader and leadership team is assessing how to navigate and be prepared for some pretty choppy waters.
Yeah, getting you out of here on this last one. I know a passion of yours throughout your career has always been on environmental sustainability.
Yes.
Talk us through that. What drives you and how do you weigh in from a corporate standpoint? Because I know you're looking at being able, in fact, I'm going to be quiet and let you explain that.
Well, certainly. Thank you. Yeah, I would say that I've always had a lifelong passion and love of nature. It's one of the things that just inspires me, and I love to get into sort of really wild nature, like going down to Patagonia, just like a million miles from anywhere, and just seeing the world and nature in its like almost a pristine state. But it wasn't until really I started traveling with Coca-Cola on business, and I made a point of visiting consumers at the bottom of the pyramid. So that took me to favelas in Rio. It took me to the townships of Johannesburg. It took me to the slums of New Delhi. And I'd go into homes with interpreters and just talk to families who had teenagers, because it was with marketing soft drinks, and just trying to understand their lives. And as I traveled in that way to those parts of our world, I just saw just terrible water shortages, terrible sanitation problems and water quality problems. I mean, so many billions of people live without potable water. And so for me, it was just so striking. It really had a big impact on me. However, I was thinking, oh, I'll get onto some, worldwide water association, but I never did it because it was a reach. It was a bit too far. And then the opportunity to join the Chattahoochee River Keeper Board came up about 4 years ago here. And is that wonderful adage, think global, act local. And for me, it was just this perfect fit. So I've been a member of the Chattahoochee River Keeper Board for 4+ years now, and I just love working with these young environmental scientists and activists and lawyers, and it brings me a lot of energy. I see the impact. I mean, our hooch is a lot cleaner today than it was 25 years ago, and for me, it helps be grounded and be fulfilled, and actually see the actions have a benefit locally. So that's one way in which I'm able to sort of feed that passion, and then I'm an energy amplifier, right? So aiming to connect dots and help the CRK team amplify their impact. And then here at Cox Communications, we have Cox Conserves, which our prior chairman, Jim Kennedy, he birthed that about 20 years ago, before ESG, before it was cool, before it's a thing to do. And we've made incredible strides as an organization. And before I got this new role as president, I was the executive team sponsor for the Cox Communications National Council for the Environment. And we have over like 250 volunteers across our footprint, across all the markets, up and down the organization, who really lean into helping us we just got to solid waste neutral, 3 years ahead of plan. So we got there last year, and we're on our way to being water neutral and carbon neutral by 2034. So, it's a real pleasure as a leader to be part of a company that walks the talk and actually does create a better future for the next generation. So anyway, so it's great. Charles, I'm sort of living my dharma. I'm doing things that I love to do, that I'm pretty good at, in the service of others, both in the business world and the community world. I'm a lucky man.
You're blessed.
I am blessed.
You're being kind when you said plumbing. I was in Soweto in 97, 98, and I don't think the word plumbing was even in the universe for that area. It crushes your soul when you see certain things. So I get what you're saying. Mark, me and the NAMIC audience appreciate your time. We know it's precious. We know, I asked you earlier, I don't know how you have the energy, because you may be on a plane to wherever in about 5 minutes to go to your next, fire or presentation, but we appreciate you giving us not just snippets of how you lead and how you manage, but you as a person. I think that's one of the biggest things I got out of this conversation, was you as an individual person as much as you as a leader. And so Cox is grateful to, should be grateful to have you. Thank you,
Charles.
Sir.
Well, thank you. You and I know each other pretty well here. Thanks for being such a charismatic leader for NAMIC, and being a thought leader and investing your time in conversations like this. You do a tremendous job, and NAMIC is an amazing organization. And whenever I'm at NAMIC events, I mean, I just love meeting all the talent and the membership. It's just awesome.
Yeah,
so thank you for your role in creating that.
Yeah, and thank you for stepping in and that it was impromptu, but we appreciate you coming in and giving us those words. Once again, thank you, sir. We appreciate you.